Family Court of 5th District, Los Angeles County, now in session. The Honorable Marvin Munson presiding. All rise.
All rise.
Hello, Mr. Lack. You're here today testifying as a digital forensic expert and reporting the information that was gathered throughout the process of the Capstone and Cybersecurity.
Thank you, Hannah, for having me here as a teleconference member. Again, I apologize I could not make it to court in person. As you know, I was returning from the Paris Cybersecurity Summit, but all flights in and out of Charles de Gaulle were canceled due to the air traffic controller strike.
What are the legal challenges associated with the cyber incidents involving foreign countries?
Sure. Well, resolving cybersecurity incidents involving foreign countries requires international cooperation in the form of ratified treaties, followed by supporting that treaty with internal government state laws. One example is the Budapest Convention on Cybercrime is one such treaty that is signed and ratified by a significant population of the international community. Australia ratified and abides by the treaty today, in fact. Unfortunately, not all states have ratified the treaty, including superpowers like China and Russia. Without such a treaty, holding other nations accountable to supporting the fight against cybercrime becomes an issue of diplomacy instead of legality. The United Nations formed a group of governmental experts, or GGE, to form a new binding treaty. In June 2017, the GGE actually failed to reach a resolution due to a few challenges that they couldn't resolve. The first challenge was the right to self-defense, which allows countries to retaliate in a proportional manner, or counter-hacking. Hacking escalates to force, which was seen as contradictory by some nations. This ties into the next legal challenge of incorporating international humanitarian laws into cybercrime. International humanitarian laws, or IHL, applies to armed conflict for states and governs the use of force with regards to the military and civilian targets. Some nations felt that agreeing to IHL for cybercrime was disadvantageous for state actors weaponizing their military and civilian cyber weapon capabilities. Lastly, the issue of legal jurisdiction is complicated with transborder cybercrime.
How do internal laws affect e-discovery?
Well, electronic discovery, or e-discovery, is a process in which electronic data is sought, located, secured, searched, and handed over with the intent of using it as evidence in a legal case. E-discovery is important to the litigation of a case. Electronic artifacts and evidence improperly accessed or handled can become corrupted, spoiled, deleted, or legally thrown out as inadmissible. The internal laws governing the process of e-discovery may have lower or higher standards. Therefore, if one country performs the e-discovery process at a poor standard, handing over poorly processed forensic evidence may not meet the legal threshold to prosecute the cyber criminal.
What are the legal challenges of accessing and retrieving electronic evidence stored on foreign soil?
Countries that ratified the Budapest Convention on Cybercrime, such as Australia, must cooperate in the sharing of evidence relating to cybercrime and provide mutual assistance to each other. All Five Eyes nations, except for New Zealand, ratified the treaty. However, New Zealand is fully cooperative in the efforts against cybercrime. Challenges arise when foreign nations are not cooperative with the sharing of evidence. Sharing or handing over evidence is separate, though, to the extradition of the offender.
Assuming cloud storage was used, what procedures were followed to access and retrieve digital evidence stored in the cloud?
Cloud storage uses software as a service. The challenge with acquiring forensic evidence in the cloud is that the data remains in a volatile environment. The data can be accessed, changed, and deleted remotely at any time. Therefore, preventing the user from accessing electronic devices or communicating with others about the cloud storage is a primary concern until the investigators can attempt to recover the evidence and the artifacts. The second challenge is acquiring the data in a method and manner that is legally admissible in court. The key to retrieving digital evidence from the cloud storage is using the digital artifacts left behind from the offender's confiscated devices. The devices may not leave behind the actual file, which is stored on the cloud storage, but the computer or smartphone can retain log information for accessing the cloud files, cloud storage file paths, or even the username and password for the cloud storage account. The investigator can use plain text, username, and passwords discovered in the confiscated devices to access the cloud storage account. Furthermore, in the case of Dropbox, the investigator can follow the cloud storage path directly without even entering a username or password. The investigator can then download the files on a forensic storage device to prevent additional writing and produce hashes from the downloaded files. The digital forensic artifacts remaining on devices, coupled with the metadata and evidence from the downloaded files, will prove that the offender accessed those files.
Specific to Australia, how do the international laws and jurisdiction influence the process and procedures followed during the forensic investigation?
Australia ratified the Budapest Convention on Cybercrime Treaty because we want to be a cooperative member in the fight against cybercrime. Being a member of the treaty improved information sharing across all other international parties during the cyber incidents. If the crime occurred in Australia, the government will apprehend, investigate, and prosecute the offender. If the offender belongs to another nationality that ratified the treaty, then Australia will comply with extradition requests. However, offenses damaging or risking Australia's national security will be extradited after Australia completed its own investigation. Digital evidence recovered will be shared to affected national parties, though.
What conflicts arose between ethics and international laws during the forensic investigations? And how did these conflicts affect the investigations? Also, how were the conflicts mitigated or resolved?
Australia and its other partner nations advocate its right to self-defense and the retaliation against the denial of service attack and the ransomware attack. The issue for this investigation was that the attack attribution was not readily clear. The concern was the attack occurred from within the Five Eyes Summit that affected all nations. Furthermore, each nation requested jurisdiction to the offender. However, each nation mutually supported one another in the response, recovery, and investigation of the cybersecurity incidents. All countries agreed the hosting country of the Global Summit would take the lead for the investigation, and that each country supports by providing the digital forensic evidence from their own affected networks and systems.
What steps were taken to protect United States soil and citizens during the international investigation?
United States, as well as Australia, released patch updates and publicized the attack to educate and prepare citizens against the attack. Ransomware relies on social engineering, so trained citizens wary against ransomware attacks will not fall prey to malicious emails and links. Patching outdated operating systems and browsers in conjunction with cyber awareness and discipline will protect the citizens, the government, and the private sector from being victimized by ransomware.
Can you describe any risks to Australia, business, or citizens from your investigations?
The denial of service and ransomware attacks threaten the availability of information. Denial of service inundates networks and systems to inoperable conditions, while ransomware locks files from normal authorized access, and including a ransom price tag that nobody wants to pay. Affected parties, if improperly prepared, could stand to lose everything. So backing up system drives in multiple locations will significantly mitigate the risks of ransomware.
I'm concluding my investigation for today, and thank you for sharing your knowledge, skill, experience, training, and education with us during the testimony.
My pleasure, Hannah, and good luck in court. If you need anything else from me, please feel free to contact me anytime.